These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
I wouldn't call it surreal.
Or is it?
I wouldn't call it surreal. I would say it's exciting. I think if you would have told me before the season that we'd be going to the Super Bowl, I probably would have called you crazy. But then, we played a whole season, and nothing surprises me now. I know the kind of guys that we have and the team that we have. So, there's still one left. We're excited about this one, but we'll celebrate tonight and then move on.
And then, can you tell us a little bit about your chain there?
Oh, you like that one?
Yeah.
I would not. There's no story to it. It's just I think it's pretty cool.
What needs to happen for Judd for us to have like a Jay-Z diamond?
A surly chain.
Yeah. The incredible thing, though, is when was the question asked subsequently, is the chain real? And Burrow said, I make too much for it not to be real.
That was the next. Yeah, that was the next.
That's a great. I love that line. I make way too much for that not to be a real chain.
But he doesn't say it in a way that's like, you clowns, you ratty media types. He kind of laughs like, I make a lot of money. It's okay. We can talk about it.
And you're not rich.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's not. No, he's not saying that.
But you might have but he thinks that people are like, yeah, the chain's cool. I'd get a chain like that. And he's like, yeah, I got a real one too. So he's great. He's cocky, but you know what? When you back it up, good for you,
dude. Let's just get into statements here. We have a full day of mostly football and Vikings related statements. Also on Purple Daily, we'll dive deep into the latest on the Vikings coaching search today. If you missed any of our Jim Harbaugh reporting and speculation over the weekend on Purple Daily, you can check that out. But let's start with Declan here. Lead us off. Statements here on this Monday.
My opening statement after watching Championship Weekend and Joey B get it done for Cincinnati. My statement is simple. Minnesota Vikings fans, you saw the blueprint yesterday. You saw the blueprint this weekend. 2 years ago, the Bengals were a mess. They're coming off another disappointing season with Andy Dalton, a QB that led them to some playoff bursts. They were routinely around 500. They were a nice team, but never considered real serious contenders in the AFC. So they bottomed out. They found themselves on top of the draft. They find their franchise quarterback, who put up one of the greatest college football seasons in history. And 2 years later, not even 2 years since you drafted him, you're now in the damn Super Bowl. And nothing about this Bengals team to me is like perfect. They have an average defense. They showed up when they needed to in the second half yesterday. No doubt they deserve props for that. They have an average offensive line. Their head coach, I'm still not completely sold on, but hell, dude, you just outcoached Andy Reid in the playoffs. Props to you, man. Like, that's a damn
How
good,
are you not sold on Zach Taylor at this point? He's in the Super Bowl with a rebuilding roster, and Joe Burrow helps, obviously.
He did a decent job. I still think his characteristics to always go for it in not opportune situations, I'm not completely sold on him being in the upper echelon of coaches yet. I'm not. He's a nice coach, and he's turned things around in Cincinnati, but I'm not ready to put him on one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's done a damn good job. He's a top 10 coach probably, but I don't have him in top 5. I just don't yet. But
so you're saying
Bengals,
that tanking is the blueprint?
Tanking is the blueprint, and also finding your next quarterback and taking the chance in the draft is the blueprint. Because you look at the Bengals, and they have offensive weapons. They have Jamar Chase, they have T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Obviously, Joe Burrow's the difference maker that makes up for all that. But the Bengals beat the Titans as a number 1 seed on the road. They beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And they made Patrick Mahomes look like a mortal quarterback in the second half. There might not be a Joe Burrow, obviously, in this draft, but what the Bengals did was they accepted that good wasn't good enough with Andy Dalton, and they were never going to be great. And they knew something had to change, so they found their franchise quarterback. They bottomed out, yes, and now they're in the damn Super Bowl. So Vikings fans, you saw the blueprint. Go make your own.
The issue is this. Because you can miss on that draft pick, and that's absolutely fine. And this is a problem internally with the Vikings and the fan base and all of us. When we look at the Bengals, we say, oh, yeah, but I mean, come on. How often? Come on, that's too difficult. The reality is you continue to shoot your shot because of exactly this. And that's why you have to do it. That's why you continually have to, at times, take chances. Because we're all so risk adverse here. Like, yeah, but you don't want to be really bad. And then if you're bad and you draft, what if you draft, Christian Ponder again or something like that? Okay,
I hear
Bad
that
things
one more freaking time.
can happen. Bad things can, or Jamarcus Russell. I mean, it doesn't. The name is not important. The thing is, yes, there are busts, and yes, there are stars. But if you don't take your shot at times, you're never going to get there. And this whole thing of, well, yeah, but I mean, I would just prefer to win 10 games. Maybe once in a while win 12 games and get just destroyed in the, let's see, conference championship game or beaten in that game. Everybody is so risk adverse. And if it was just us and not the team, it would be absolutely fine. But it's the team, too. The team has to get past this exact same fear that the fan base has.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think they have to tank and get the number 1 overall pick in the next couple of years in order to find a quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes was, 9th or 10th overall? Josh Allen was not the number 1 overall pick. I mean, Justin Herbert was not the number 1 overall pick. Lamar Jackson won an MVP award. He was the last pick in the first round. And again, is this considered the strongest quarterback draft? No, not necessarily. Would I be comfortable guaranteeing that there's at least one dude in this draft, Malik Willis or somebody, if developed the right way? Absolutely. But to your point, and I tweeted this, I was just in a war with bloggers, Vikings podcasters and bloggers on Twitter this weekend. And I'll say it on the show here. It'll never cease to amaze me how many fans, podcasters, Vikings bloggers mock the idea of taking a big swing for a young quarterback. Well, Patrick Mahomes is just available to anyone, right? It's like, well, I just named you 4 dudes that weren't number 1 overall picks that have either won MVP awards or are on their way to winning MVP awards. They're on rookie scale contracts for the most part, right? Like a lot of people would rather watch the Vikings grind their way to 7 or 8 or maybe 9 wins with the 14th best quarterback taking up 20% of the salary cap than to actually take a shot on a young quarterback of the future because Christian Ponder shell-shocked you. Why are you letting Christian Ponder control your life like this 10 years later? It's amazing. It's like, so you got into a fender bender 10 years ago, and it's like, oh, we can't drive now. What happens if we, oh my God, if we drive, it's a little risky. You might whiff again. And I'll say this, the Vikings in the 10 years before Kirk Cousins made the playoffs 5 times. 50% of the time. They've made the playoffs once in 4 years since going 13-3 and signing him the year after. So, again, I don't think you have to tank to have the number 1 overall pick. I don't know if I advocate for that. But take a freaking swing. I don't know. I'm all worked up after watching those games.
But what if you get bad? I mean, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? And then you don't, oh my God, what happens then? The franchise folds, right? That's the problem. We're so afraid of, I get in day-to-day life not taking dumb risks. I don't. But this is sports. You have to sometimes go out on that limb. And occasionally it's going to break. And occasionally it's not going to break.
To your point, I'll throw a statement out here, okay? The franchise didn't crumble because the Vikings drafted Christian Ponder.
Yeah.
Well, they had to, they actually went to the playoffs despite how bad he was, which is a testament to the roster that they were able to build. But Adrian Peterson carried them, because they could afford to pay him $14 million a year because they weren't paying their quarterback any money, right?
Correct.
So, they had a down year or two. They reset. They brought Mike Zimmer. It was a year and a half that they were bad or something. And then they hired a new coach, and then they went and got Bridgewater, and they wound up getting Keenum into Bradford, whatever. But the franchise didn't go into a 10-year tailspin because they whiffed on a first-round quarterback. When Teddy Bridgewater blew his knee out, and that became sort of a bust of a first-round pick, they still went 13-3 a year later. So yes, go take a swing. Go get your Burrow, go get your Allen, go get your Mahomes, go get your Herbert, and stop laughing and mocking the notion that,
right,
oh, it's just that easy, huh? Well,
right.
It's not easy, but you got to try.
It's doable. It's being actively done. It's being done continually by teams not named the Vikings.
Yes. All right, Judd.
So I'll take Declan's statement and go to the National Football Conference and give you this statement. The future can be now, okay? The Los Angeles Rams in coming seasons could be horsebleed. They could be, we don't know. But this team has traded since 2018. They put this graphic up on Fox last night. 6 first-round picks. They don't have right now a first-round pick until 2024. But you know what they do have, ladies and gentlemen? A spot in the Super Bowl. And that is what every fan in this town who loves the Vikings absolutely wants. Now the question is, okay, but Judd, you're going to give up so much. What's going to happen? Let me take you back to 2000 and I believe it was 19. In fact, it was 2019. Jalen Ramsey being shopped aggressively by the Jags. And I remember sitting in this very studio doing shows with our friend Matthew Collar, talking about, okay, what's the price tag? Because Jalen Ramsey is the type of cornerback who can step in here for an extended period of time, too. Still, he's young and can be dominant. I mean, he's the exact type of guy that you need because you're all in now with Kirk. Like you're going all in. But what about the future? But what about your draft picks? But what about the cap? Well, the cap is going to take a hit because of Kirk, regardless. So the fact is, while Deck says, and he's right, go 2-14, tank, get the first-round pick, and if the first overall pick is Joe Burrow, you might be set for a long time. But the other option is, with Cousins, it's sort of like the Vikings dove in the pool and stopped themselves at like their waist. And their legs are dangling out of the pool. They're like, but we can't go in with our legs, too. It's like, no, if you're going to dive.
That's how I swim, actually. I literally just go right here, and I don't go in the deep end.
No,
so
but I'm
that's
saying,
how
like,
I swim.
Their head is in the water,
Yeah.
and their legs are sticking out right now. And they're like, but we can't go all the way down. It's like, no, you have to. You have to. And so the point is, the Rams possibly are one of the most irresponsible franchises I've seen. But they're in the Super Bowl. And how did they get there? They committed to what they were doing. The Vikings truly, with Kirk, did this half-ass. Because they're like, well, we got Kirk, and now we can't get this, and now we can't get No, if you're going to go in, and by the way, that's a very short window of opportunity.
Yeah.
You got to go in.
They got Kirk. They got their, at the time, right? They got their franchise quarterback, highly paid, win now, coming off a 13-3 season. And then they proceeded to draft more players over a 3-year stretch,
Yes.
38th than any team basically in NFL history since the
Right, but
draft
think
was
about
shortened to 7 rounds. Rather than leveraging those picks to build that roster, you're right, dude. They had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now, I think part of the reason why they had 1 foot out is because they were never fully sold on Kirk Cousins, the asset that they acquired. The head coach wasn't.
No,
I mean, all this is why they got fired, right? Just chaos. And by the way, I saw Mike Zimmer's alleged Instagram model girlfriend was chirping about Spielman on social media this weekend and stuff. All right, to keep the comparison train rolling here, this is, I guess, the theme of these last 10 or 15 minutes is what can the Vikings learn from the Super Bowl teams. My next statement is people are trying to use Matthew Stafford as an example for why Kirk Cousins can do it too if given the chance. Well, look at these guys. They've been in the same quarterback tier rankings for all these years, and look what happens. You put one of them, Matthew Stafford, in this great Ferrari, and he drives it to the Super Bowl. And by the way, I am thrilled for Matthew Stafford. That dude spent 12 years in the most disorganized, incompetent organization in the last 50 years of the NFL. And now we are seeing what he can do when put with great infrastructure. But the 3 major differences and why I think the comparisons have sort of jumped the shark and why I almost think it's absurd now to compare Matthew Stafford to Kirk Cousins. 3 main reasons. Number 1, the Lions aren't the Vikings. Like, people are saying, well, look, like Stafford, you take him out of the Lions and put him with the Rams. Like, are we really comparing the Lions to the Vikings? I mean, Kirk Cousins has had pretty damn good infrastructure the last 4 years. The first 2 years, he had one of the top 5 or 10 defenses in the NFL. They still couldn't get it done. They won 1 playoff game. And he's had Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Irv Smith, Kyle Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, like all these weapons on offense. Offensive line's a little shaky, but nothing's going to be perfect. So you can't compare Stafford leaving the Lions and that dumpster fire organization year after year with Cousins potentially moving on from the Vikings to some other advantageous situation. Secondly, if you just this isn't going to be quantifiable on a football stat page. So if you're just looking at the spreadsheet here, I'm sorry, but Stafford is a gravitational pull teammate. He is the unquestioned leader. He's got a personality that teammates love, going back to Detroit as well. He rises up in a lot of big moments. He actually has 43 game-winning drives in his career. One year he had 8 with the Lions. 8 game-winning drives in one season. I mean, I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but he's definitely more of a gravitational pull, bring everything together for the team guy than Kirk Cousins has been. And number 3, maybe the most important one, Stafford's cap hit is far less than Cousins. And this allows the Rams to build a better roster or eat more dead cap on the players like Jared Goff that they aren't paying to be on the team anymore. So, yes, is there maybe a better situation for Cousins, and could he thrive more? Of course. And maybe the Vikings create it here. But I'm just kind of done comparing Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins. Until Cousins plays in a game beyond like January 10th and and has his back to the wall and needs to come up with a game-winning drive in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, like you really can't compare the two anymore.
Show some damn respect, because you're talking about, as of this morning, Pro Bowl quarterback Kirk Cousins.
Pro Bowl Kirk Cousins.
Pro Bowl
Sorry,
quarterback, named to the Pro Bowl team. You know what? I am so tired. I am so tired. I mean, this man was an alternate, and shockingly, A-Rod said, I'm going to blow off that stupid game. So I'm very upset with you, because he is a Pro Bowl quarterback as of today, and I'm sure we're about to see that. Yeah, you're right. And Stafford, there's no question, has a clutch gene that Kirk lacks. I've seen Stafford lead drives where I'm like, whoa, that's impressive. In Detroit.
And he throws
in Detroit.
He definitely throws picks at a higher rate than Cousins.
Oh, yeah.
The variance of Matthew Stafford is wider than Cousins, but you get more on the upside than you do with Cousins.
Stafford can do stupid things, but again, it comes back to what I consider to be one of the most important things about the quarterback position. He's wired in a way that I would prefer. He's wired in a way where, yes, he'll do dumb things, but those are the same. And I'm not comparing these two directly, but they are the same Favre things where Favre did some incredibly, we saw one of them, stupid things, but he also had that gene where he could take chances that could win you games. I don't think Kirk is going to throw that pass in week 3, 2009 to Greg Lewis. Do you? Do you think he's going to throw that perfect pass, which is one of the most incredible finishes to a Vikings game to this day I've seen? I don't think he's going to throw that pass.
Jeff Dugan's in the flat. He hits Jeff Dugan for a nice little 12-yard gain in 2009. That's exactly what happened.
That's actually very good. You might be right.
Get it a little bit closer. A little bit closer for the.
Oh, my God. That's a good call. Jeff Dugan.
100%.
Kirk, I'm here.
Oh, God.
I love it.
All right, back to Declan.
All right, my next statement. The list is getting shorter, and I wonder which name the Vikings are going to pick. So Ian Rappaport this morning on NFL Network has the Vikings going to interview Kevin O'Connell and Raheem Morris from the LA Rams, offensive and defensive coordinator. It seems like O'Connell, Morris, D'Amico Ryans are like your quote-unquote, it's not officially finalists, but it seems like they have zeroed in on those guys, right? And I feel like all three of them are kind of in their own bin, in their own unique way of who are they going to pick, because I think they're all very different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Morris is a former head coach, and I think a lot of us had him as the favorite just a few weeks ago. He has experience on both sides of the ball, but now there's other candidates emerging, and it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be just married to the idea of Raheem Morris, even if he maybe is still on our number one list of who you'd like to hire. O'Connell and Ryans are, I think, obviously a bit more raw. Ryans just retired from football 3 years ago. And O'Connell has had a similar rise where we don't know much about him, but he's obviously like the offensive-centric guy that the team claims you kind of pivot to after being on a defensive side of the ball with Mike Zimmer. O'Connell would seem like the polar opposite that you would go in typical NFL coaching hiring sprees, where if you're defense, you go offense, your offense, you go defense. And look, O'Connell's part of this McVay coaching tree. Like, we kind of forget about, we always talk about that Belichick coaching tree sometimes being buffoons, and I don't think O'Connell is a buffoon, but he's worked with Sean McVay, dude. So there could be something there.
Buffoon.
And then It's a great word. Our buffoon of the week, which I think will obviously segment in a segment potentially be bringing back to Mackey and Judd, which
Yes.
I'd absolutely
We're
love.
trying to figure out, are we going to call it the clown of the week or the buffoon of the week?
We need a clown
And we need a
nose
mask.
or a mask.
We need the
Okay,
mask.
we
of
At
that.
least
okay,
the
we
clown
need to.
nose.
I'll order us
And-
some clown masks.
Order
Let me
some
put it on
Prime
my
us some
to-do list
Amazon,
here.
some masks and like the little honking nose and I'm all for it. Finally, too, and then there's Jim Harbaugh here. This volatility and chaoticness that could be Jim Harbaugh running the Vikings. And if Harbaugh's the dude, I think that puts a fire underneath this organization that they're going to win now. And it could be a fiery car wreck. It could be a complete disaster. Or the Vikings might go to the GD Super Bowl. So all four of these dudes, Ryans, Raheem Morris, O'Connell, Jim Harbaugh, they're all in their own paths, I think, for what the Vikings want to choose. And I'm just so curious on which one they're going to end up going with.
Yeah, this Harbaugh stuff is so fascinating. Just to add some more reporting here from John Bacon, who's doing daily Harbaugh Watch updates
He's the guy.
on Twitter here. So he's he's the author. He wrote a book about Jim Harbaugh. He is close with Jim Harbaugh's family. So he tweeted this morning, Harbaugh Watch Day 30. Nobody knows how this will end, but, and then in parentheses, all info backed by two sources with direct knowledge. Michigan's offer is not a holdup. Minnesota, so basically Michigan has made an offer and they're just okay with Harbaugh exploring his Harbaugh options, right? I don't know what else they would do, right?
Right.
So yeah, go explore,
Yeah.
get it out of your system. If you want to come back. It's great.
Yep.
Minnesota interviewed Harbaugh on Saturday. It went very well. No offer yet. If the Vikings offer, Miami could counter. Miami also interested. Thus, my odds of Harbaugh staying at Michigan are now down to 60-40. He had it at 80-20 last week, with the 20% being the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all very interesting, and not a lot of information has come out about the conversation on Saturday. Everything is very much under wraps.
And
I
we
don't think
it would-
Harbaugh has an agent, so sometimes agents leak things, and I don't know if Harbaugh's just operating without an agent, but
And we think the discussion on Saturday was of the virtual variety, but there might be an in-person with the Vikings this week at some point. But the key here is the Dolphins. Like, are the Dolphins real? Are they a bargaining chip? And
are the Vikings a bargaining chip? for the
that could be.
Dolphins?
And the guy that owns the Dolphins, a guy by the name of Stephen Ross, is a Michigan grad. And he said at the outset of this process that I will not pilfer Jim Harbaugh from my school. But now that Jim's like, I might want to leave, would he step in now? So there's so many variables here, and this is so intriguing because it's real. I guess the question is it feels like Harbaugh wants to leave, and my guess is that it's going to come down to, and this is always the most important thing. What are the Vikings willing to pay him, right? That becomes the most important thing. Probably not control, but what are the Vikings willing to pay Jim Harbaugh?
Because there's reports that in some sort of conversation with the Bears earlier this offseason that the numbers 10 and 100 were being floated around, which is that's the Gruden contract.
See you, dude.
Yeah,
10 and 100. We'll catch you later.
I mean, it's not our money, and it doesn't affect the salary cap, so I guess I don't really care, but. I will say that I have heard over the weekend and late last week, Harbaugh he's not just using the Vikings as like a bargaining chip. He actually is interested in this job, and he's been doing back channeling, asking a ton of questions about the roster and the organization, and trying to do his homework. So it's a real thing. I think the biggest question for both Harbaugh and the Vikings, aside from money, I think if he slides a piece of paper across the counter and it says 10-100, I think the Wolves slide it back to him and thank him for his time. But how realistic is it that the Vikings can just sort of run it back in 2022? I know a lot of fans are saying, if you just replace Mike Zimmer with a better offensive-minded coach and someone, I know that there's a lot of people also saying, well, you just fired Mike Zimmer. Why would you bring in another sort of older, abrasive guy? Well, one, Harbaugh is actually like 8 years younger than Mike Zimmer. He is a much better team builder, chemistry builder. He's kind of a weird, abrasive guy, but a lot of his issues were with front office Yes, he rubbed some players the wrong way, but for like a 3-4 year stretch before sometimes he can wear on guys. The 49ers, his last stint in the NFL, were one of the best and closest knit teams in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't draw comparisons to Mike Zimmer, but if the Vikings feel like 2023-24 is more of a realistic target to get the cap right, to get a younger quarterback in here who they can develop, is Harbaugh really going to want to be a part of that process? Or would he look to Miami and say, well, Tua might not be perfect, but I can get more out of Tua. They're sort of ready to compete in a division that has a couple weak spots in it, right? So, I don't know. I think it's going to come down to what do the Vikings want to do in 2022? If they want to take a step back, which I think they should, I don't know that Harbaugh's the guy. This will be interesting.
I think the Wilfs, the problem is, I think the Wilfs know what they should do, but are always tempted by two things. Big splashes, which this potentially would be a huge splash. And the second thing is, I think they maybe, especially by a guy like Jim, who I think is a pretty impressive presence in a room, at least at first, I think it'd be pretty easy to convince the Wilfs of, hold on a second here, you're going to rebuild? Oh, no. I've looked. I spent the weekend going through your roster. Let me tell you right now, Wilfs, I'm going to tell you right now, this roster, and I'm a quarterback whisperer, right? So, I could see them easily being talked into... Forget that rebuild crap. We are going to win now. And anyone, of course, guys, is going to bring up one thing. If Rodgers is gone, this division's ours, right? So I think the Wilfs, because they're fans, probably could be easily persuade of, oh, hell, let's come in and win. Might not be true, but it would definitely be fun.
Somebody else pointed out as well that the main key to all of this could be one of Jim Harbaugh's favorite offensive linemen from his time at Michigan, Mason Cole. The Mason Cole was a second-team All-Big Ten
my God. I didn't even know
offensive
that.
lineman at Michigan.
Oh, that's hilarious.
In 2016-17, which would have coincided with Jim Harbaugh's, first year or two at Michigan?
Oh, my God.
What
That's
if Mason
great.
Cole is the one? He is the one that
Mason,
Look out, Rick Dennison.
final
Mason
piece to this
Cole,
puzzle.
I'll take you to the football bank, the football blood bank.
A shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They can help take your business to another level. Through risk management, they have 100+ years of experience in helping business owners maximize their business's potential and minimize risk. Find out more about all the great tools and people and resources Federated can provide at federatedinsurance.com. All right, boys, statements